Good afternoon, esteemed entrepreneurs. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on the country you are joining us from. On the region you're joining us from, are you joining us from West Africa here? Good afternoon to everybody. If you are joining us from Central Africa, East Africa, South Africa, Northern Africa, we are happy to have you with us today. That is the beauty of the AFC community. We work with everybody as long as you are in Africa, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today, the August edition of our First Thursdays webinar. And today we'll be discussing a topic that concerns everybody: understanding agri-food policies in Africa, what every agripreneur needs to know for sustainable growth. So from time to time, different governments, depending on your country, even organizations like even international organizations have come up with policies upon policies that would impact businesses in Africa, that would help businesses, especially those in the agri sector, because everybody is trying to see how we can achieve food security. So there have been policies upon policies that can actually support entrepreneurs in this industry to help them thrive, so that Africa can begin to feed itself and the rest of the world. So this is an interesting topic, and I enjoin everybody to sit tight, listen, pay attention, ask as many questions as you would want to ask. And if you know anybody that this topic will be important to, relevant to, share the link with them, tell them to join now before the actual session begins. They have the time to join, so you can share the link with them, let them join this session and learn from this today's session. It's going to be interesting, it's going to be impactful, it's going to be insightful. But before we proceed, we are very inclusive. We work with everybody in Africa, and so we have French colleagues here with us. So for our French speakers, we have French interpretation on this call. So don't miss out. As I'm speaking, somebody is interpreting in French. If you want to take advantage of this, if you want to learn whatever we're going to do today in French, log into the meeting on Zoom and mute your audio as soon as you enter. And once you enter, click the interpretation button fourth from the right and select your preferred language, which is French, actually, because you just see English and French, so just choose French. And once you choose French, you will hear the translated audio and the original audio, just so that you understand, the context and the original speaker's tone. And if you don't want to hear what the original speaker is saying, you just want to listen and focus on the French interpreter, you can mute original audio so that you can hear only the interpreter. But to enjoy this feature, you need to join this meeting through your computer, using your computer. So you need to go on your web, Zoom web, or your computer, your computer audio to join this meeting. Or if you must use your phone, that means you should have a Zoom app on your phone. So download the Zoom app so that you can actually take advantage of the language feature on this call. Now, this is the agenda. I'll just run us through the agenda for today. The welcome, I would introduce myself and have you introduce yourself. We'll have the housekeeping, and then connecting with AFC, you'll learn about the African food chain makers, especially if this is your first time joining our programs or learning about us. And even if you've been very regular in our programs, and a lot of people may be asking, what's this AFC about? It's important that you also pay attention when we are talking about African food change maker, so that you can go back and tell your colleagues what exactly we are about, so that they don't miss out on the many opportunities that we provide. You have the AFC community opportunities from the AFC Hub. When we are done with all of this, then we know that we are ready to listen to our speaker. We'll have the speaker's introduction, the speaker's presentation, and then we'll have the question and answers that I usually like. So make sure when the speaker is having a session, you have your notepad and pen, taking notes and jotting down questions that you would ask once it is time for questions and answers. And then after that, we'll have the next steps, announcements, and then we close. So, housekeeping. As you know, whenever you join, these housekeeping rules are generic. Whenever you join webinars like this, use the expression buttons such as the raise hand, thumbs up, wave to contribute or call for attention. So if you want to call for attention, you can click, or there's a part where you see raise hand if you need to ask a question or you want to react. You will see reaction there. You click on it to maybe smile, wave, or something. Don't just unmute without us, telling you to unmute, please. All attendees will be able to participate in all relevant phases of the event. Kindly use the chat to contribute and send your questions. So until we get to the question and answer session where you'll be asked to unmute and ask your questions, you can freely engage in the chat room. When allowed to speak during the Q&A, that's the question and answer and breakout sessions, kindly respect the group's time and keep your comments brief and straight to the point so that we would not sleep here on top one question. And finally, kindly refrain from posting anything in the chat that is unrelated to the event. So when we say introduce yourself, tell us who you are, the organization you work for. Please don't come and start sharing links for people to start joining. And when you see links that are not posted by any AFC team member on the group and you join and you have one kind of bad experience, you'll be doing that at your own risk. So we are saying it now. Please don't post links. Don't come here to just tell us who you are and the business that you do. And then people would see you and want to connect with you eventually. Please try as much as possible not to make the chat room rowdy with links. Okay, so having said that, it's time for us to meet ourselves. My name is Ebere Oko, Membership Coordinator, African Food Changemakers. Please introduce yourself in the chat room, your name, your country, and the kind of business that you do. Who knows, you may find your customer here, you may find a new supplier, you may find a new partner in the chat room. So proceed to the chat room, drop your name, your country, and the kind of business you do. I'm Ebere and I'm in Nigeria here, Abuja. And I'm hoping that I will meet majority of you someday. So just keep dropping introduce yourself, tell us the country you are joining us from, tell us the kind of business you do. I can see Francis Otera, Joka Crispin, Nigeria Limited from Calabar. I can see Reju from Ondo State. I can see Nenweli from South Africa. I can see Jehoshua from Lagos, Nigeria. I can see Awubong Valerie from Cameroon. You're all welcome. Itoho from Akwa Ibom, Nigeria. Yes, you are with me here. I can see Fatu from Gambia, Peter, Nigeria, and Moses from South Sudan. So I say a big welcome to all of you. Thank you all for joining. Like I said, if you know that today's topic is going to be relevant to your colleagues, business partners, employees, share this link with them. Let them join ASAP as soon as possible so that they too can pick something from today's session. Don't keep it to yourself. Tell me how you're feeling in the chat box. Are you excited? Are you happy? I'm here. I'm feeling cold, but I'm happy to be with you today. So use an emoji in the chat box and tell me how you feel. Are you excited? Are you drained? It's been a long week. Have you been hustling business and it's looking like nothing is happening? Are you happy? Are you excited? Did you just win it, get a deal? Did you just close a deal? Just tell us how you feel in the chat box. Let me see if there are any. Oh, Mercy is dancing. That means there's good news somewhere. I'm happy to see that. So Bena is happy. He has a smiling face there. I'm happy that you all are doing good. Sono, I don't know what this means. I think this smiley means love struck, but that should mean that you're happy to be here. Charity is love struck as well. Asiba. All right. Thank you very much for participating. Let's quickly move on so that I'm very sure our speaker, our facilitator is ready for us. But before we do that, I will take you through African food change makers. I mean, we are the ones hosting this event, so you need to know more about us. And what you'll be seeing now will be a video about the African food change makers. So stay tuned, listen, and enjoy the video. Learn more about us. Well, look at it now. And I
world everything that I've learned.
Only AFC can give you that opportunity. Don't miss it.
Hello, my name is Ndidio Kongwuneli, and I've spent most of my adult life trying to change narratives about Africa.
What struck me when I moved to the US was that the face of Africa was a hungry child. I would go to dinner parties and people would say, oh, my mom used to say, finish your dinner. There are starving children in Biafra or Ethiopia or Eritrea. I'd see, pictures of these starving children in infomercials, in train stations, and it just made me so angry because that was not the face of Africa that I had grown to recognize in my own backyard.
The African food narrative is often misconstrued. What if we told you a different story? What if we showed you how Africa feeds itself and how Africa can feed the world? Meet the African Food Changemakers, a community of entrepreneurs changing the narrative about food in Africa. Watch how they do this through their small and medium-sized enterprises, which we believe are the lifeblood of the food ecosystem in Africa. But then, faced with the devastating impacts of climate change, global and local risks and shocks, and macro and microeconomic challenges, these entrepreneurs struggle to survive. Through training, funding opportunities, exposure, trade linkages, and a vibrant community fostering peer-to-peer collaborations, we're empowering entrepreneurs for global reach and recognition. Our programs and resources support climate resilience and adaptation, business development and entrepreneurship, gender equitable agri-food systems, international trade capacity building, and other key areas. With significant impact made since 2022, we are growing our community one agripreneur at a time and spreading our reach across the continent.
Hi, my name is Ngozi Roland Nonyegonke. I'm the CEO of Sem Foods and Spices.
My name is Bayo Adewoye. I'm co-founder and CEO at GroVesto.
I am Chiamaka Wakalo Egemba, also known as Chef Amaka, the queen of Afrofusion.
My success story cannot be complete without AFC. AFC is the way to go. If you're looking for the right network, if you're looking for the organization that will support you, both in capacity building, both in holding your hands.
The PRAISE program has really impacted us in a large way. In the way we work, we actually work with smallholder farmers, and a lot of them are in the rural area. They don't have this understanding. So what we've learned through the PRAISE program, we're now impacting it to the smallholder farmers that we're working with.
There are certain things that I got from the leading African women in food fellowship under the African Food Changemakers. And one of them is the mentorship programs. Indeed, I can't wait to show the world everything that I've learned.
Only AFC can give you that opportunity. Don't miss it.
Join us to be a part of our community and support our vision of 1 million successful and sustainable African agri-businesses recognized and respected globally. African Food Changemakers, nourishing Africa and changing global narratives. Partner with us today.
We need to support small and medium-sized agri-food enterprises by creating an enabling environment for them, providing training, catalytic financing, enabling them to scale. We also need to support women-owned businesses, especially those run by young women. We must collectively build a food ecosystem that works not just for us, but for future generations. Join us.
Aha, so that is all you need to know about the African food change makers. Now that you know what we are about, I'll call on Sylvester, who is a membership officer in the African Food Chain Makers, to tell you more about our community and what you stand to gain when you join the African Food Change Makers community. It's one thing to attend our webinars, attend our programs, but you're not just supposed to go like that. When you attend our programs, it's important that you also connect with over 8,000 African agri-SMEs. Learn together, share stories, share your successes together, and thrive together. So I'll call on Sylvester to take us through the membership, the community drive, and let you know how you can join the African Food Chain Makers community. Over to you, Sylvester.
Okay, thank you very much, Ebere. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right. A very good afternoon, good evening to each and every one of us on this call today. It's nice to have you all here. So very quickly, I will be taking you through the membership drive, and the essence of this is to put you through on the benefits of becoming our member and how to become our member. So if you're already part of our member, I would like you to type on the chat box, I am a change maker. And if you're not also part of the community, you can still type on the chat box indicating you want to join the community, and we'll drop the link for you and follow up on how to join the community successfully. So amongst many other benefits that we have, here are a few of the benefits you stand to enjoy if you become part of our community. So we strengthen and scale your agribusiness. We prepare your business to enter the new African and global markets. We also facilitate access to funding, speaking, and exhibition opportunities. And we also give you access to our hub resource and the marketplace. And the hub resource is a section of our hub where we have opportunities ranging from funding, data, events, capacity building, and trainings that are made available for you to access once you become part of our community. And the marketplace, as the name implies, a marketplace, we all know that a market is where we go to buy and sell products and services. So we have a digital marketplace where you come, you display your products or your services on there, and then you have people buy or sell. You have to sell or you have people buy your products via the marketplace. And we also enhance the visibility and promotes media engagement of selected agribusinesses. So from time to time, we do select some of the agripreneurs who are our community members, and we spotlight them through our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, and the likes. So we also give you access to exclusive networking events and global markets linkages. Next slide, please. Okay. So here are a few opportunities for you. Okay, thank you. So we have the Africa Agri-Food Development Program, AADP. It's coming up on, the deadline for this is the 15th of August this month. So you can rush to the AFC Hub, click on the opportunities page, look for the financial supports under the opportunities. You look for this opportunity, you click on it, and we also have the IFIX Innovation Foundation, and the deadline for this also is on the 30th of August, and you can rush there and register so you can benefit from this. The next slide, please. Okay, for events, we have the 9th International Agro and Poultry Africa 2025, and this will be happening in Kenya. For our Kenya members, you can rush this and take part of this, and the deadline for this is 21st. The event for this, it takes place on the 21st to the 23rd, and then the last year we have the hibiscus farm management. It's a training. If you want to know more about hibiscus farming and management, you rush to the opportunity page under trainings, and then you look for this opportunity. So after saying all this, let me take you quickly on how to become a part of the community, how to join the community. So first, you have to have access to internet, either on your phone or your laptop or your tablet, whichever one you are using, and you visit www.afchub.org, or you click on the link that will be dropped in the chat box by my colleague. After that, you click on the join the community icon that is on the homepage. It's there boldly on the left-hand side. You'll see it in the middle, join the community. And once you click on it, you get a drop down of questions. And these questions, you have to fill these questions correctly. And this would help us to know or streamline the kind of opportunities we'll be sending down to you. So once you're done answering these questions, ensure that you click on the submit button at the end of the page. So sometimes a lot of people just fill them and they don't submit. So once you don't submit, you are not going to be registered. So you have to click on the submit button, and upon submission, or once you click on it, your form is being submitted and you get an email that you have successfully registered to become a part of our member. But verification takes 24 to 48 hours. And after verification, you would still get an email that, yes, you have been verified to be a member of our community. And once you get that, you can go back to the AFC Hub page. That's the home page. You click on the login that is on the top right of the web page, and fill in your details, your email and your password, the password you created, the details you imputed as your personal details. So you click on login, and then you can access your dashboard. And once you can access your dashboard, you can access the many opportunities and benefits we have for you. So there are 3 major criteria you have to tick before you would become a member of our community. So firstly, you have to own or work as a top management for an agribusiness. And secondly, the agribusiness must be in existence for at least 6 months. And lastly, you have to have social media presence. We all know how important social media is in this present dispensation. So social media helps to put you out there. It gives you visibility, basically. So you have to have a social media presence. And these 3 criteria will enable you become our community member. So please note that becoming a member is totally free. You don't have to pay $1 or $1 or whatever currency it is in your country. It's totally free. It is accessible for anyone who owns or work as in an agribusiness, and the agribusiness is in existence for at least 6 months, and you have a social media presence. You can just navigate to the AFC Hub and join the community. So we'll be looking forward to welcoming as many of you that can be able to join during or after this session. So thank you very much, and over to you, Ebere.
Thank you so much, Sylvester, for that. So if you meet any of these criteria and you're not yet a member of the AFC, quickly click on the link on the chat box and join the community. For those of us that have been members, that are members of the African Food Changemakers community, since May, we have deployed a survey to get everybody in the community to update their profile. And this is necessary for us so that we know how you're doing in your business and can identify what the gaps and challenges that you are facing in your business. It is when we see this, we're able to assess the issues that your business is facing, that we can go back and create initiatives and programs that will help you solve these problems. Now we have shared the link again, and our data collection officers will be calling you to follow up with you to get you to fill this form. Please don't hesitate to fill this form. It is the information you give us that we are able to use to create webinars, to create initiatives, to create programs, to interact with partners on your behalf. Remember, it's your voice, your growth. It is what you tell us that we can use to help you grow. So when our data collection officers reach out to you, please give them your attention. And when they share the link with you for you to fill the survey, kindly fill the survey. It will not take your time, I assure you. We have the Building Resilience Against Climate and Environmental Shock, the cohort 3, batch 3. I mean, we've had batch 1, batch 2. Now we're having the last batch for the year. You don't want to miss it. A lot of people have used this certificate to get consulting opportunities, to get opportunities for strategic collaborations. You know, they've used this certificate to even get grant opportunities and so on and so forth. You know that climate is a topic today, and before anybody would want to invest in your business, before anybody would want to put money into what you do or trust your business, they want to see how sustainable your business is, regardless of any climate or environmental shocks. And that is what the Building Resilience Against Climate and Environmental Shocks will do for you. So don't take it for granted. Don't sleep on it. Go and apply for this course. It's a 6 weeks self-paced training program. Go to www.brace.afchub.org/application. My colleague will put this link on the chat box. Click on it and apply for this program. Don't say I didn't tell you. Don't miss this last batch. This will be the last batch for the year. Don't miss it, please. It's very important. And then for those of us that are community members, we usually encourage you to go ahead and refer other agripreneurs within your network. Remember that you are a change maker. Once you join this community, you become a change maker in the agri-food ecosystem in Africa. And so as you learn, you cascade. Whenever you learn anything, you gain something new, you take it out. You shouldn't bear it alone. Invite people within your network, agripreneurs from wherever you're working in, to join the African Food Change Makers. And because you're a member, you have a unique members referral deal. Once you log on to your portal, you find your unique members referral ID. It is under your user profile. Just log on to your dashboard, you see user profile, it comes open, and you will see that link. You see that link down there where the arrow is pointing to. That is your unique membership referral link. You click on this, copy it, and share to as many groups as possible that you belong to that actually do agri-food businesses. And I've been seeing a lot of referrals. A lot of people have been referring, so well done to all of you. And if you have not, please continue to refer agripreneurs to join this community. Now that we have taken you through the AFC and how you can take advantage of all the resources that we have within the community and how you can encourage people to be part of us. And before I proceed, all those opportunities that Sylvester has highlighted, that I highlighted previously, don't miss any of them. Go to our website, see the opportunities there, and apply for as many as possible. Now we come to the reason why we are here. I'd like to say the meat of today's session. And let me introduce to you our speaker for today, Dr. Charles Winshienyi. Charles, I'm very sorry. I hope I did well. If I did not, forgive me. He is the livestock advisor and vet expert at the AGPE PMO Office of the Vice President of Nigeria. So allow me to read his bio. He's a social entrepreneur. Charles is a social entrepreneur and agricultural grants consultant with a strong track record driving sustainable innovation across Africa's food systems. He currently serves as a livestock advisor and veterinary expert at the Agribusiness and Productivity Enhancement Project Management Office under the Office of the Vice President of Nigeria. He is a Columbia Business School alumnus. Charles has contributed to high impact agricultural initiatives and international engagement programs with the World Bank, FAO, GIZ, and the Harvard Center for International Development. He has also served as a mentor and trainer in youth-focused entrepreneurship and innovation programs, including those sponsored by the MasterCard Foundation Hub, She Leads Africa, Faith Foundation, and IDEV Africa. His expertise spans agri-tech, agri-food policy, that's why we are here, e-commerce, and sustainable growth across Africa's agricultural value chains. Charles, thank you so much for being with us today. And we can't wait. I can't wait to learn from your wealth of experience. So, Charles, you have the floor. Charles, are you here with me?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon. It's afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, Charles.
Yes. So okay, yes. I think okay, someone share my slide for me already. Okay, that's better.
Yes.
So before we get started, I would like to I might switch off my camera sometime because of network. So allow me if you can't see my. Okay, yeah. So I would like to ask: Has anyone been affected by any major agricultural policy? If yes, if you don't mind, maybe putting an answer on the chat box. Let me get to know. I think that's just a way to start. I mean, there've been lots of policies going out there. So maybe positively or negatively, if you've been affected by any agricultural policy, I have a lot of examples I've experienced. But then let me get to check. So just put in chat box. You could just mention the food system, the value chain, and maybe not if you can specify the policy. If not, maybe how it's affected. If that works. Okay, anyone? And let me check the chat box. Okay, fertilizer distribution. Okay, I can see from where for fertilizer distribution. Let me check. I can see. Okay, yeah, Raphael has said fertilizer distribution as well. See if I can have like one or two more before I get to continue. Okay, land tenure reform. Thank you. That's a major one as well. Thank you. And that's from Scholastica. So anyone else? Final one. Okay, corn importation ban back then. Okay, I think it affected their subsidy investment program, Shopee. Okay, so for part two, the question was basically what agriculture policies have affected you in a negative or positive way? Or let me say, what agriculture policies have benefited you and which ones affected you per se? Okay, after again, Edo State selling it to market. Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, so because of time, I would try to access to equipment like tractors, Dewali. Thank you very much. So, and let me just pause on this. So because of time, a lot of things, I mean, we can talk about policies for as much as we can, and we might not even hit the ceiling on that because it's quite vast. Okay, so what I'll try to do is to, in the next couple of slides, walk us through some of the dynamics involved in drafting or preparing agricultural policies. All these things that get to be announced from, okay, positively capacity building via GIZ. Okay, that's very good. Financing policy, yes, there are lots of them. So how do these policies even come to be? You are a farmer in Edo State, a farmer in Ekiti State, a farmer in Yenagoa in Bayelsa State, a farmer in Ashanti in Ghana, a farmer in Mombasa in Kenya, a farmer in Windhoek, Namibia, and the likes. So why should you care? You have your farm, you have your agricultural practice, you have your agribusiness. Why don't you just continue taking it as possible? When you hear in the news that Russia is invading Ukraine, for example, or you hear in the news that this is happening out there in the world, why should you care about that? I mean, it's far off there in Europe or in Southeast Asia. How is it going to affect you? When you hear that some international donor agencies are, coming into Nigeria to see how to improve our food systems and the likes, how should it? I mean, why should it concern you? a bit of background about myself. I once worked in a company where we were doing well by design in terms of design of the business model. It was agriculture, so agribusiness and e-commerce is also one of my specialties. I spent about 5 years, I think from 2018 to about 2023 or so, over this. I got very used to the supply chain, the food systems, cutting across equipment, crops, livestock, day-old chicks, name it, on the business side of it. Yeah, moving on the business side of that. And one thing I learned was that I became interested in the bigger picture, in the world out there. We were based in one of the towns in Nigeria, and like I said, we were doing what we were distributing around Nigeria. But at the end of the day, I became a bit interested in what is out there. If something is being announced in Abuja, or they're having something in Abuja, or let's say they're having an ECOWAS meeting, or they're having an African Union meeting, or they're even having a UN or World Food Program meeting and the likes, and people are posting it out there, why should it concern me? I should have been, Fatu said she has not benefited from any policy yet. Okay, that's funny. Okay, yes, but it's actually a reality. So, I asked myself that, people who didn't know this stuff were here. Don't you have a bigger picture? And at the end of the day, I became a bit interested in the world out there. I started spending more time watching CNN business news. I started spending more time reading some newspapers. I started spending more time following some blogs and agriculture and the likes. And just like most people that want to travel out of your respective country or engage in international trade, information is one major thing that might affect you negatively if care is not taken. So, I learned quite a lot, and from some of my engagement and the likes, I was able to, recommend some updates, some programs and the likes to my firm. From what you saw in my profile, most of those things happened quite recently. And at the end of the day, I became a bit exposed. For example, when I started engaging with the people in GIZ, going through some of their programs, and also the bigger picture, and it helped me key in. So I now got to understand why some things are working and some things are not working. Final story, when I was running through my master's research in the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, there was a case that came up. I think an African country had sent a shipload or shipment of Clarias garaepino, that's catfish, to a country in Europe. And apparently some regulations had changed, so to say, that when it got there, that ship was not allowed to, offload whatever it had into the ports. It got delayed, paperwork and everything. They're talking about traceability. They're talking about traceability and a lot of other things. So let me just see the chat, okay? Yeah, so they're talking about traceability and a lot. Long and short, whoever had that shipment lost out a lot because they had to now move it from whatever port it was supposed to have uploaded to maybe another country that was willing to accept. So whether we like it or not, policy affects us in a lot of ways, even in ways we might not be able to imagine. So briefly, for the next couple of minutes, I will run us through why policy literacy matters in agribusiness, the evolution of agricultural policy systems. With context to Nigeria, I'm sure that we have, there are lots of us in other countries, so you can actually get some context for yourself as well. Then I'm also going to look at the major African agricultural declarations. Before, we're talking about commodity boards, market systems, structural adjustment programs. All of a sudden, we started talking about, maybe import regulations, this and that. All of a sudden, everybody's talking about climate and traceability programs, sustainability and the likes. What might come up tomorrow? AI has introduced a lot into the business space. So the times keep changing. Policies, adjustments, programs, schemes and the likes, they keep changing. Sometimes you could go out and mention that there are lots of all these schemes out there, but at the end of the day, when new governments come up, when new programs come up, sometimes the other ones are kind of left on the side and then something new has to come up. That tells us that as entrepreneurs, as agripreneurs, we should be able to position ourselves in a way that we have a front, not necessarily a front row access to information, but anything that goes on out there, let us get to know. Okay, I'm also going to talk about some key agricultural policy updates, looking at national level for Nigeria, regional programs for Africa, and then international programs that are going to affect the average agripreneur in Africa. And these are things that came up from about 2023 till this year and ongoing. So we can see how to position ourselves. So while this might throw us a bit back to look at some of the historical context and why the average farmer in any community in the remote area, or the average smallholder farmer might feel he does not have much say in the kind of policies that are being made in the agricultural sector that might affect him. What the dynamics of those ones are as well. And then finally, how do we unlock access? Access to policy tools, access to people, what are the portals for agripreneurs? And I do tend to digress a bit, so I'm not always going to speak on my slides. So you can take time to look at what's on the slides and also take time to listen. I will try not to give us information that is readily available online. We can do our research to get that, but I'll just try to give us advice based on my experience as well, some research I've done on how you as an agribusiness person, okay, could think differently to see how you can position your business model and your business to be at least have a fighting chance when it comes to policies that might favor you. And when we're talking about policies, it cuts across, please, the next slide. When we're talking about policies, it cuts across the local schemes in your local communities. It goes beyond that. So, for example, some people are saying, they benefited from a scheme, a particular program. It's possible that that program was maybe in the cassava value chain in a particular region of a country or in a particular sub-region of Africa. Tomorrow, another person could talk about the fact that they benefited from a program that cut across the national level in Ghana or Malawi or Nigeria, for example, and they got access to that. That is a national policy, a national program that they accepted. Another person could talk about a program that cut across West Africa. Another person could talk about. So there are different levels to this. So why should policy matter to us? Policy frameworks help to set the legal, financial, operational environments for agribusinesses. For example, it helps to define the kind of approved inputs and production standards. If, for example, you felt you could, I don't know what example to. If, for example, you felt you could, when you harvest cassava, you get to peel it, wash it, put it in maybe a jute bag, put it under the presser, and then, after grinding it, you put it on the presser, and then you get to press it down. And at the end of the day, a new regulation comes out to say, as far as the policy on the policy on cassava production and processing is concerned, let us stop using jute bags or the normal sacks that we use. We have to start using XYZ product and the likes. If they find out that whatever product they are trying to export or trying to sell does not go through the new process, then you might not have access to markets. So policies define the way we produce a lot of things. It defines what we get to produce. It will tell you why you cannot develop or you cannot plant or develop or even import a particular species of a particular crop or even a particular species of livestock to Nigeria because of some certain reasons. Okay, somebody thought that they affected by the importation of rice in the past. For those of us in Nigeria, there was a time that I think during Obasanjo's regime, they banned the importation of poultry, and that is chicken. So to say, it affected a lot of poultry farmers in the negative ways and in the positive ways, depending. People that spent a lot of money importing this kind of products, once that policy came into being, it affected them negatively. Those that had capacity or had the potential capacity to produce as much as possible within Nigeria, but they were frustrated by the importation and the competitiveness of the local and the foreign breed of poultry meat in the market. Such policy benefited them. So policies kind of change a lot, and there are people that are always going to be on let me not say the losing end, but they might not benefit as much, and the people that it might position them better. So policy frameworks defines what kind of input we need to use, okay? And in terms of production standards for some things, I'm going to talk about some new policy regulations that are coming up, I think from last month ongoing, especially in Nigeria, in terms of how some things were being produced before and how they have to be produced going forward if we want to have access to markets. Also, policy talks about, governs trade and market entry. For example, for those of us that are big on the news, when the US President Donald Trump came into power, there have been talks about, policy changes, about the big, beautiful bill, for those of us that are following up on that, talks about tax cuts, housing crisis, talks about tariffs on the international markets, okay, who their trading partners are, and all those too. So it might seem like declarations or just talk to you, but when you have, or maybe you have a product that is being heavily taxed and decide to move it to the international market, you realize how heavy some of these policies can actually be to affect you. So access to information is power. If you are hearing that the tariff of this particular product on this particular sector has gone up, for example, for your competitor in another market, or the location you're based in or your market is not being affected by that, that is a favorable outlet, a favorable angle for you to go into. Still, like I said, information is power. If you don't know this, you might keep doing things the old way. Then also, policies help to determine the eligibility for subsidies and access to funding. Okay, policies could say, okay, if you want to have access to funding in ABC, for example, AFC during the introduction, you can't just wake up one day and start having access to the products or services or enjoying the benefits of AFC without necessarily becoming a member. So AFC have a policy that says, you know, before you become a member, you have to register, you have to do this. So they have their own set criteria. If you want to gain entry into that system and enjoy some of the benefits that they get to offer, then you have to align by that. Okay, so another thing policy also does is to regulate the safety and certification compliance. Now, when you talk about certification compliance, most of us in the agribusiness, please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay, yeah. So when you talk about certification compliance, most of us in the business space generally, we assume that all you need is to register your business and you're good. It is not enough. What are some of those other things that we need to note that as these new policies are coming up? What are some of the major dependables across board that makes it easier for us to position ourselves well? I have a business thing, I register my business. Is that enough? What if a new policy or a new program or scheme comes up that I'm very, very like it fits my industry, it fits my context, but at the end of the day, I don't have access to that because I missed point 1 or point 2 or point 3. I'm going to give us a good example. I'm very, very big on in the grant space. I've applied to a lot of grants. I've won a good number. I do a lot of grants consulting for startups, agribusinesses, and the likes. And one major rule is to follow the instructions to the letter. If the grant giving body said that when you're submitting your EOI or when you're submitting your grant application or whatever, you have to send a 1 or 2 or 5-page proposal. If you don't have access to that information and you send a 10-page proposal, you're already out. If they said that for you to apply for the grant program, you have to log into their website, create a profile, and get to fill in the boxes one by one. If you don't follow that, and you assume that all you need to do is to get someone to develop a 15-page concept note for you, put all your pictures, your statement of account and everything, and package it and look for the grants websites, and email and send it to them, I assume no. So following rules are very, very important, but you won't even know what rules to follow if you're not aware of what those rules are. So as you go on, I'm going to guide us on some of the ways you can tweak our business models, because I assume most of us are in the agribusiness space. As agripreneurs, either have a business or you probably even have a farm that's a business or in any form of business. But even if you cannot do most of these things because they are too much work or you're not really interested, you want to get the benefits, but you don't have enough time to do that. How can you retweak your human capacity within your team to be able to position you for that? I'm going to talk to us about that as well. What are the demerits of not having access or not aligning ourselves to policies? Inaccessibility of public funding or input support due to non-compliance. Some of us have not gotten any funding or any sort of support. This might actually tell why we've not gotten those, because we are not aware of some of the rules and regulations of some of this stuff or what they entail. Delays in trade or logistics caused by regulatory misalignment. So imagine if you have a friend in the US or Canada and you want to send something to them, and then you get to the airport or to the seaport or wherever you want to ship. Probably they even get to it and they inform me that they are passing it from this country to this country to this place. And then the long story, some days later, they tell that the product is halfway in transit in a particular country. And either because the country's trade regulations have changed with your country or with the place you're taking it to, the product might not be able to move further and the likes. So access to, knowledge of policy frameworks, very, very important as well. Exclusion from institutional markets due to missing certifications. This affects us a lot in Nigeria and Africa as well, especially when we're looking at international trade, trying to export stuff to other countries. Some of these countries have very, very strict and stringent measures, especially in the phytosanitary space, specifically targeting some particular food systems, particularly targeting some particular production systems, or particularly targeting different aspects of the production cycle. It could even be how stuff are either harvested, how they are packaged or how they're processed, how they're packaged, and how they're shipped. Like I said, for example, for those of us in Nigeria, I think some state governments, I think maybe Lagos State, talked about the banning the use of banning single-use plastics. It might not have gotten to the full policy level, but it's already out there. If you are very, very big in importing that kind of material, also, you know that policy is going to negatively affect you. So imagine if you are not aware of that policy and you have a big warehouse in that location and you plan to place an order for like 2 or 3 container loads of that particular product into the market. Now, if you are with maybe a scrupulous people you are working with that want to make quick money and that whether that policy is not even going to favor you, that is a sweet way for them to make money. It happens a lot. So having knowledge about policies and policy changes to actually help us in the long run. Then exposure to penalties or product recalls for safety violation. There are lots of this. And next slide, please. The next year. So if we look at this, so this slide will show us the evolution, or let's even ask ourselves, how do some of these policies come about? Okay, and like I said, the first part of my presentation is going to talk about, let us even get to understand some of the dynamics and the concepts behind that. So we'll start with the picture on the left, which is the cycle of policy decision making in Africa. How do these policies come into being? What influences or informs some of the policies we are hearing about? And then in the next one by the right, which is the dark background one, we're going to talk about the cycle of policy implementation.
Yes, Anna, I can hear you.
Okay, it's going to talk about the dynamics of policy implementation. And the fact that this is a cycle doesn't mean it follows itself sequentially. The point is to represent it that it is like an ongoing cycle. It's not as if one. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Charles. Okay. Sorry for that distraction.
Yeah. So it just talks about the fact that these are some of the salient checkpoints that might actually influence how some policies come about and how some policies go down. So let us start from the top, political interest. Influence of policy through lobbying and advocacy. For example, you can find out that a lot of policy changes to a large extent can be influenced by interest groups. And when it comes to interest groups, it depends a lot on the strength of the interest groups as well, okay? Political economy is also coming to play. It also affects, it's also influenced by the 2 aspects of lobbying and advocacy. So most times, it might seem that powerful organizations or powerful multinationals or powerful companies or powerful associations have have a stronger access to lobby for some policies to be pushed, while those that seem to have been either not much having much power, or they might be, especially the smallholder farmers, which is the general complaint, don't have access to that level. Political interest can also be one of the ways that policies can be influenced. Okay, institutional systems can change policy through established structures. Economic ideologies. Okay, one part, majority can carry the vote, so to say, whereby a lot. Let me say, if all the for example, in major governments, some groups, some pressure groups, some associations can come together and go into a strike action to say, okay, they want to change the policy to say, let us stop importation of this, or let us reduce the so you can say, yeah, let us reduce the so you can say, let us stop importation, let us reduce the amount of tax in this, let us do this and that. Okay, so sometimes there are the aspects of strike action and various ways some groups can decide to see how to influence the government's policy. So something comes up, people get to protest, down their tools, do all those other stuff, and at the end of the day, the government says, okay, because of this pressure coming from this group, especially on the majority side, okay, then let us get to changes because these are the people that are producing our food. And then on another aspect, in terms of the one that it might be that they are not major, they are not that much in terms, for example, let me look at smallholder farmers versus maybe the multinationals or the strong, maybe the strong private sector companies and the likes. So it could be on the part of the majority and access to the pressure from the majority on one part. It could also be on the part of influence and power. Okay, so when you have monopolies in some certain sectors or some certain food systems, the organizations involved in that monopoly, even though they might not be much in terms of, they might not be that much, but they have that higher level of influence over how those food systems or that production metric or whatever is being run. So it's easier for them to push for some policy changes. For example, like I said earlier, when blocking the importation of frozen chicken from other countries to Nigeria benefited some people and did not benefit some people. That's why the first question I asked in the beginning is, name some policies that benefited and some that do not benefit. It's possible that some of you here can lead a particular policy or a program that he benefited from. Another person can lead the same program and there's a good reason or bad reason depending why they did not benefit from that. Okay, another part I want to look at as well is the economic influences impacting policies to global trends. The fact that, let's say, there might be an attack somewhere in the Middle East that's actually affecting the price of or the supply of crude oil, actually cascade down to Africa, affect the price of, oil supply, which is going to increase affect the supply chain by increasing the cost of logistics to move farm products or byproducts from the farms, or even products due for export from this location to this location. And it can also affect policies as well. So, like I said, the big picture is also as important as the small picture. So it's important to note how some of these things come into play. Another aspect, which is very, very common, especially in our African context, is voter pressure. So sometimes when new organizations are about to, new parties are emerging, or they start for election in a lot of countries, you see that sometimes immediately after the election period, especially right on the promises given, the new government decides to either abolish existing policies or get to change some of the policies because the party ideologies, it also cuts across the ideological shifts as well. The ideology of the party, the ideology of the ruling class as well can also affect this. And then also, when maybe the voters or the populace are interested in pushing one particular thing, for example, for those of us that are big on US politics, the Make America Great Again, American First has been a general ideology that has come up, and the president wrote on that. So a lot of policies, a lot of tariffs coming up are going to be affected by that particular voter pressure. If anything is being done that is different from what was written on or what the voters actually voted into power for, then it actually moves to see how some of these people might react negatively towards that aspect. Political incentives as well also affect how policies are being made. And while I'm talking about this, it's not just specific to the national level, it also goes across the regional or regional levels, Pan-African level, as well as the international space. Then global trends influence policies to international norms. If, for example, the World Bank or the United Nations, maybe G7, G8, or whatever, all those summits, and they let's sit together and they say, okay, they're bringing up these declarations to affect this and that. For example, I'm going to talk about the declaration in agriculture. For example, in the African space, in the next slide, it's also going to affect that. So whatever is being decided outside your country, outside your state, outside your local government might actually end up affecting because it has a cascading effect. We'll see that happens. Then interestingly, another part that affects how policy decisions are being made is institutional memory. Sometimes governments or individuals that have access to influence can say, okay, things are not going on the way we want now. Let us look into the past to ask ourselves what went well back then. And then they say, okay, this worked because ABC conditions were there. That was 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 years ago. Now, the way the country is, or the way the West African, or the way the African sub-region is, or whatever, we can actually bring back what was done 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, change one or two or three models, and it's going to come up into place. For example, the context of some of the subsidy-based programs that were done especially in some African countries in some of the recent years versus some of the self-sustaining, bear the full brunt and everything, and key interventions coming up this time around, especially the current climate. So taking back what has happened in the past. For example, if you're looking at I'm going to show the picture. Some of us that were, probably a bit advanced in age, can remember how the whole Granite pyramids were in the northern Nigeria, and people could, the discussion to come about. At the time, we had these Granite pyramids in northern Nigeria. It was on our social studies textbooks. It was everywhere. And how can we bring that back? And then at the end of the day, they cannot now be pushed towards influencing policies that sees how we can actually ramp up the production of granite to the step that we can actually replicate those pyramids and get international partners that will have a good market system that we can actually export. So it worked well in the past. For some reason, or for some governments, or for some regions, it stopped working, and they want to bring that back. So that can inform what can change policy A from coming and then policy B. Then moving down the line to what affects the implementation of those policies. So your government or your region or your continent has agreed on a particular declaration and said you are going forward to this kind of policy. Why is it that at the end of the day, this is a positive policy, positive programs were brought up at the end of the day? It came into your country or came to your community, but you did not get to benefit from it. Now, what are some of the things that probably affect policy implementation, especially in Africa? as usual, a very common strategy is political maneuvering. Okay, political strategies can generally affect some of the policies coming up. For example, when you have opposition parties in government, or maybe depending on the kind of government you have an executive arm, and then you have, other arms of the government that are probably putting positive or negative pressure on the government, on the existing government. It might actually affect how some of these policies are pushed. Some government might come in with a particular framework to say, okay, as far as this West African or international declaration is concerned, we are ready on that to do ABC. And then at the end of the day, when the government goes out of power, the new government comes and says, whatever that other government is doing, we're cancelling it and starting all over. In as much as most of these governments might actually have good interests, but the lack of continuity in some policies or some programs that can positively affect the population might actually be affected a lot by the political maneuver, and it covers different aspects. Institutional capacity as well. When these policies come into our countries, or we bring them up even in our communities, some of the policies you talked about, if you do your research, you ask yourself, who are those in charge of these policies? How equipped are they to be able to affect the implementation of these policies? There is the general private sector versus public sector versus NGOs/development organizations, whereby there's a general consensus that says, government is there to drive policy and drive adoption of this at the national level and ensure that the kind of framework that they can work with, while the private sector is actually best in deploying. Okay. Please, can you see my slide? I think it went off.
Okay, give me a minute. Let me share again.
Okay.
Can you see it now? Is it back on? Please confirm if it's back on, if you can see it.
Okay, yeah, hello, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm good. I can see it now. Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry about that. So, like I said earlier, the institutional capacity also informs how some of the policies are being.
Hi, Charles. Sorry, give me a minute, Charles. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay,
Yes,
so
I can.
can we let us try to see how we can round up your session in 15 minutes so that people can ask their questions.
Okay, that's good. So let
Thank
me
you
just
so much.
okay. So I think let us move to the next slide. I'll just have to rush it quickly. Okay. So briefly, I think I'm going to jump through some of the other slides that look more on the historical context so that we'll go into what can actually affect us as entrepreneurs. This is still specific to Nigeria. When you do a bit of study on the flow of some policies that are currently ongoing in the country from way back to dates, you can break it into, you want to call it the pre-colonial phase or the colonial phase, which is before the 1960s, especially for the country. And then depending on your country, you can easily see how to structure, how you can look at the historical context of the policies. What was the policy system in Nigeria like? And I did this slide because a lot of countries these days are, based on some new changes, are going back. Because a lot of countries these days, based on some new systems, especially in Africa, are going back to some of the older systems of doing stuff. So a lot of policies being introduced now might not necessarily be brand new. It might just be a tweak of some of the old systems. For example, for those of us in Nigeria, while the commodity pricing system and the marketing boards were a thing of the colonial era or early on in Nigeria or so, and after kind of a while, it kind of went down. The current, it's coming back into the country again. So you're having the cotton and the textiles and garment industry commodity boards the commodity ports, coming up for the cocoa sector and a lot of other sectors, especially in the export space as well. So maybe when
we can't hear you again, no.
Actually have access to that. Then
your voice
for the
went.
African space, a lot of policies have affected us generally. Majority of these are declared. I think it's easier to break them down into 4. The Maputo Declaration is one of the most common ones. This one affects government. The simple thing you need to know is that. Hello?
Yeah, Charles, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, your voice is very low, very faint.
Okay, is it better now?
I think it's coming up.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's
better.
better.
Okay, so sorry. Thank you for letting me. Thank you. Okay, so quickly, the Maputo Declaration in 2023, I think AFC have access to the slides so they can actually share, because one thing I did in the slide was to ensure you have as much detail as possible. Even if I'm unable to finish, you can click on this link to look through them. So the Maputo Declaration said every country must allocate 10% of their national budget to agriculture. If this is being done, and this was as far back as 2003, if this is being done and each country ensures that they are achieving a 6% annual growth in the agricultural sector, then imagine if you had started this as way back at 2003, a lot of African countries would have gotten to a large extent by now. But most countries in Africa don't even have their budget getting to as much as 2 or 3 or 4 or 5%. Of course, countries have a lot of different priorities. Countries in the, maybe countries that are facing some maybe extremism or some war situations are pushing more of their budget towards defense. Some other countries are pushing more of their budget towards IT and technology. Some other countries are putting their budget towards other sectors of the economy, while they assume that of agriculture should grow at a steady rate. That was also followed by the Malabo Declaration that talked about focusing on ending hunger, reducing poverty, increasing trade. Then the Nairobi Declaration in 2024 recently focused more on saying, Africa, let us now focus on how we can improve the health of our soil, and then how we can adopt the use of fertilizers and the likes, and having an action plan. A lot of programs have come from this. Then the Kampala Declaration, which is quite recent, now shifted towards saying, okay, Africa, we're working on being self-sufficient. Let us also work on improving international trade. That means produce as much as we can to make sure we're feeding our population, but also focus on making as much foreign exchange as possible by exporting some of these, by exporting our agricultural products. Please, next slide. Next slide, please, next. Next slide. Then the one after this, please. Okay, yeah, this is fine. So this slide is very important. I won't spend too much time on that, but please, I think if you're no, please go back. The one that had the multicolor. Please, can you go back a bit? Okay, no. The other way. There was a slide that showed, yeah, this one is fine. Yes, thank you. So this slide, I think, is probably going to be the most important slide for most of us. This looks at, okay, some of the new programs and policies that came up from as recent as 2023 till dates and going onward. For example, for those in Nigeria, there's the National Agribusiness Policy Mechanism. You can always have enough time to go through this. The Green Imperative Project is very, very recent, as recent as this year. Nigeria and Britain are partnering. I think for someone that mentioned someone mentioned the challenge towards mechanization and tractor. This is actually going to help you a lot. So for this, to get access to this, this was looking at empowering farming communities with access to technology and agricultural mechanization, one project or one program per local government across the 774 local governments in Nigeria. So the column at the middle part, how can you benefit from this position, is very, very important. So if you're watching this, you can actually just take a screenshot of this page, and if you can zoom in into that as well. I'm going to talk about that. Then on the regional space, you have the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement aspect, very important as well. Then there's the Special Agricultural Processing Zones. This is an AFDB funded AFDB/IFM program. AFDB program that cuts across different states across Africa. For in Nigeria, we've had adoption in Kaduna State, Cross River State, and especially Oyo State. Basically, this system says, okay, as against having, you harvest your cassava here, go ahead to go and process, go ahead to go and package, go ahead to go and put in the warehouse or put in the market or whatever. The plan is now, let us create a large hub whereby everything that has to do with processing different food systems can be sustained. And then this hub of processing is created in different locations. And at the end of the day, access to options for logistics or supply chain to make sure we're actually either taking it to places you can actually export to neighboring countries or export in international space is very important. So this kind of program, especially if you are in the production, in the processing system, or even in the production system, it's important that you key into this as well. Now, on the international part, if you look at the bottom part, there is the EU deforestation regulation. The Office of the Vice President is hosting a national roundtable. It's going to be on Monday, but it's just some select people who are hosting it in the European Union. The basic change in this is that if you're in the cocoa sector, the criteria for producing cocoa that is going to be exported to the international market has changed. They are no more looking at whether the cocoa is good enough or bad. Now they have some major criteria. Number one, that the cocoa being produced was not as a result of deforestation of forest areas for you to plant your cocoa. And you have to prove that the cocoa has to be traceability certified. So if these two angles are not being met, okay, I know not even being met, if these two angles are not being covered, and you are packaging or preparing to produce cocoa in enough quantity to be able to export to the European market, you're not going to even make any inroad into it. So there have to be bringing up stakeholders across the private sector, the public sector, the NGO, and every other person coming in to discuss these regulations. There is a national task force and a national technical working committee and the likes. So this shows that as far as cocoa is concerned, and that's why I said information is important. If you're a cocoa producer, please note this, go and read up the EU deforestation regulation. It came into effect, I think, as at early December 2024, and it's already in effect. What I just having to discuss with the key stakeholders and the European Union on how to communicate this effectively. So this is a policy that will affect positively or negatively those producing in the cocoa space, especially if you're looking at producing enough to export to the European Union. Then also, this one is also recent. The United Kingdom has also developed the Developing Countries Trading Scheme, whereby they are having as much as 99% of some goods from Nigeria and some other African countries enter at very, very low tariff or duty-free to the UK. If you're looking at, and then it affects those in the cocoa sector, in the sesame sector, in the cashew and the palm oil sector, and some other sectors. I don't have the full list here. So if you're interested in, especially now that we have a lot of Nigerians in the UK, and you're looking at setting up an export-based business for agricultural products in the UK, look into this particular policy or this particular program and see I can key into that. Like I said, take a screenshot. I have some ideas in the ash part on how you can do that as well. Then I think let me look at, yes, another important one is the China FOCAC zero tariff system, whereby the Chinese government recently announced that for some African countries, including Nigeria, as at from 1st of December, they've eased the entry of some of our products to the Chinese markets. So I won't have enough time to go into this, but please just take a screenshot and go to that. The column on the middle part that is in ash color gives you a guide on how you can actually benefit. Then the last column tells you about some of the key stakeholders that are championing these particular programs in our different nationalities. Please, the next slide. Okay, so finally, all this big English I'll be speaking, how will you as an agripreneur, and then I think we just a second to the last slide, how will you as an agripreneur get to position yourself well? So back to the initial recommendation I gave in the beginning. If you have a business, you need a critical role or a critical person in your business that looks outward beyond your business and looks at the bigger picture. Okay, it's not just enough that for example, if you're a cocoa producer and your focus is to produce the best cocoa ever in Nigeria, and you don't have someone that will tell you that, please, there's a new regulation that is saying that because you've established a very large cocoa plantation and your plan is to supply some local communities, but focus on supplying it for export production and processing and the likes. If you're not aware of that information alone, it's going to affect your business in a way. So it's more like saying, as a business owner, if you cannot do this, hire somebody on your team that can actually focus on looking out there, joining a lot of groups out there to hunt for information that is going to affect your sector. If an agribusiness specialist, you cut across every other one, it still affects you. But if you're a food system specialist, are you in the cassava space, are you in the cashew space, are you in the mango space and the likes, it's important that every information about your food system, about your value chain, comes to you directly. How do you do that? There are various ways. You should be able to join, one important thing again, one important tool, Facebook. People don't usually use Facebook as much as it is, but I usually tell people, especially for those of us in Nigeria, Naira Land Agricultural Platform, LinkedIn profiles, especially for some of these some of these groups. Like if you look at the other slide, most of those groups I mentioned, note their websites, their social media pages, okay? And then some of these online blogs and articles that are specifically focused on the agricultural sector. Why? When you're looking at some of the national dailies and the likes, they might not be able to carry it as fast as possible. But sometimes when they're setting up committees on the national level, the subnational level, the state level, the regional level, even the local government level, you have to be able to key in to get access to this. Some of these are good at having access to WhatsApp groups that some information is being passed. Okay, so first things first, your business needs to be formalized. Of course, you need to have a registered business with the Corporate Affairs Commission and have access to a tax identification number. It's not just enough to be registered with TAC. You need to have access to your tax identification number. Very important. So what they're looking for contracts with some of these international NGOs or some agribusiness contracts, so they're looking at getting access to grants and opportunities and the likes. It also helps. Another thing a lot of smart farmers have done, especially those in the large scale, is that they partnered with either some consulting companies or some grants giving organizations. I've been in a space that there have been some farms that have gotten access to huge grants because they decided to partner well with a strong financial organization, strong consulting organization, an organization that is strong in the consulting space, and then organizations or consultants that are very good in the grant space. So all they do is to package the farm, put them as probably a member of a grant application and the like to say, okay, if this project is deploying ABC products or whatever into some communities, as far as it's agricultural project products in our food system, this farm is the best way to deploy this. Okay. Then important as well, you need to have a separate bank account for your business. You need to open a business account and have a separate bank account for your business. Sometimes some of these policies inform that you need to show a bit of credit worthiness. How much money is coming to your business, how much money is going out and the like. So using your personal accounts for your business might not really be a smart thing to do, especially if you want to plug in, because a lot of policies are trying to dissuade stuff like this. It's easier to trace inflow and outflow from business accounts specifically for your business than using your personal accounts as well. There are lots of digital hubs. And if you're in rural communities or you're close to your local government, it's nice to go to your local government and ask for access to the agricultural liaison officers or people in the agricultural space. Because a lot of these projects that are going to be deployed, for example, the one I talked about, the Green Imperative project, which is the tech/mechanization aspect, is being deployed at the local government level in Nigeria. So if you have access to visit your local government secretariats, it would be nice to have, even if it's the WhatsApp contact or number or contact of the people in the agricultural desk, okay, and establish a good relationship with them. That way, if there's a workshop coming up, there's a capacity building session coming up, there are, webinars or any program coming up to get people in the community to be able to focus, to position them for some opportunities. You have a stronger stake in that because you've already built that networking access, okay? Another way to do that again is, one thing I'm very, very big on is to volunteer. So when I see a lot of organizations in the international space or the local space or regional space doing a lot of stuff. For example, I'm just saying this, for example, so AFC should forgive me. So imagine if you are an agripreneur, you're a farmer, and AFC have a volunteering program that you're volunteering with them for some stuff. That means you have access to information earlier than an average person online will have access to it. So that means it's almost easier for you to key in into that. Another aspect again is keep good farm records. I've consulted with a lot of agripreneurs. And when I say agripreneurs, I'm not talking of some of the farmers in the villages or the local communities. I'm talking of, master's graduates, PhD students, people that have very, very good business, people that have good ideas. But at the end of the day, most people are still sticking to the traditional method of writing your checkbook or your balance book or your finances or whatever on a piece of paper. So it will be nice to be able to start keeping records of some of the things you need to have, because these things are very, very important, especially if you want to have access to loan opportunities or have access to some of these programs coming up. Then, very important, especially if you're in the shea butter space, the sesame space, and the cocoa space, there are lots of traceability groups you can join online. For example, if you're in the cocoa space, various local governments and various commissioners, the offices of the ministry, various state ministries have the European Union Deforestation Regulation desk in the offices, whereby you can go to them and ask for how you can be a part of some of the deliberations, so that way, if any new information comes up, they get to put it on WhatsApp and have access to that information. So what does traceability mean? How does it affect you? What are the things you need to do? All those things will be discussed there. Sometimes some of this information is not something people just post out that way. So if you're a part of that system, it also helps. Then another thing some other businesses do is to partner with larger businesses. For example, in the slide that I saw earlier, there's some businesses that got access to some grants. And then when you are checking online, you see that, okay, for example, you heard that this particular business or this particular organization in the agricultural space, for example, had access to funding and grants. Most times, either the grants giving body or even the organizations that got access to the grants, we do capacity building workshop, they will do networking meetings and the likes. That is the best way to meet them, engage with them, tell them what you do, especially when it's across the same food system or value chain, exchange their contacts. One tip I usually tell a lot of people is when you go to events, especially, and I'm very, very big on having good LinkedIn profiles, especially as agribusiness people, because people take you at face value. So you go to a networking meeting, you have a business card, your ID card, and every other thing. When you get to meet some of these people that you want to partner with, there might be organizations that are bigger than yours, or even international or regional groups and the likes, but they are in the position of influence that might benefit from. Collecting their phone numbers and trying to call them or chat them later is not really a smart thing to do most times. Because at the end of the day, you are collecting their phone numbers, every other person is collecting, and they don't even know who you are. You spend as much as you can introducing yourself and nobody gets to respond to you. So what I usually do is I encourage agripreneurs, young like us, to have very good LinkedIn profiles. Your LinkedIn profiles carry information about you, whether it's academic history, your work history, and then you ensure you have probably either a strong website or you have a business account on LinkedIn or a business page, whereby you're putting out, for example, I know I've helped a lot and I've encouraged a lot of farmers to have a LinkedIn profile for a LinkedIn page for their farms, and it's linked to their accounts. So that way, let's assume that you go to a networking meeting and you heard that there's a lot of funding going into the cocoa sector, and you met with 2 or 3 or 4 organizations that are championing, traceability programs or funding for the cocoa sector, and you collect their phone numbers, and you go back home. By the time you're collecting their phone number at that event, 20 or 30 other people are waiting to collect their phone numbers, and they go to a lot of events on a daily basis. So when you're saying, hi, my name is this, I met you at that event or whatever, all they can see is just your phone number. You're not really that unique to them, so it's very, very difficult to stand out. So what I usually get some of the farmers I mentor is, by the time you have your LinkedIn profile, go to that person's page or that person's LinkedIn profile, send a connection request, and send a follow-up message. So that way, when the person has time to go to the LinkedIn connection request coming up, they will see your name. Your name is Dr. Charles Oshenyi, and you're like, oh, hi, my name is Charles. I met you at this event. I'm a cocoa farmer. I currently have a XYZ cocoa farm, blah, 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 in this space. I'm into this and that. Currently, we do this and that. Just a short bio about yourself. Now, this is the difference between it and phone number. Your phone number, all they can see is all the messages you sent, but they don't even know who you are. On LinkedIn, for example, they get to see your message, but they can do further. They go to your LinkedIn profile and they look at you and see what you've done. So Charles that is sending AFC a message that, hi, AFC, I want to do this and that with you on phone. All they can do is my DP, they can see that and whatever I sent. But there's another Charles that's sending that message to AFC on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn guys in AFC will check and like, oh, this is his profile. Oh, wow, he has done this, he does this. So everything about it that's going to put you in the best position is already waiting for them on that LinkedIn profile. So long and short, especially as agripreneurs in the agricultural space, LinkedIn is not something that people want to use to look for jobs. I know a lot of tailors or dressmakers that have used LinkedIn to be able to start making dresses for people in the international space, for CEOs and business leaders in the international space, and get to export it or ship it to them outside the country. Because LinkedIn is one of the major platforms that you can position yourself well, and people get to see you in a way that doesn't necessarily mean them having your phone number. So positioning yourself very well on social media helps a lot. If you don't have money to maintain a website, creating a LinkedIn page and maintaining it is very, very free. You don't need to, if you can even learn it on YouTube, it's very, very easy to maintain. Okay. Then attend agricultural expos, town halls. If you want, you can check for the United Nations. There's all this World Food Day, what this one day, and check online when those days are approaching on LinkedIn. You're going to see a lot of companies saying, we are hosting the World Milk Day at this place. We are hosting the World Cassava Day at this place. For example, my office hosted the World Cassava Day earlier in July, and most of the key players in the cassava sector came into the same room, about 250 guests or so, to talk about everything cassava. People exchange numbers. A lot of things is going on in the cassava space. So this strategy will help you to position yourself well. Like I said, as an entrepreneur, if you don't have the time to do some of this stuff, It's not just enough to hire a marketing manager, hire a logistics manager, hire a driver. You can look for some young people that are very, very good at this stuff. I don't know whatever portfolio you want to give them, but somebody in your team or somebody in your firm should be championing. In fact, take a screenshot of this particular page. And you need somebody in your team to be championing this for you. Very important as well. Then, okay, please, the slide before this, I think I'm almost done. The slide before this, please. This slide basically still talks about the same thing. But one other thing I want to guide us on is that it's important to put your story out there. A lot of us do a lot of all these, a lot of us do our production and all those things we are doing in our farms. It's going on well, but the people that matter do not know about it. So sometimes I tell people, apart from even using LinkedIn, it could be on Facebook, it could be on WhatsApp, it could be on various groups, it could even be on your WhatsApp status. But the point is, people need to know that this is what you do. People need to know the kind of programs you're attending. People need to know the kind of things. And for example, if your farm produce cassava or produce any product from maybe it was this last year, I know a lot of farms that are beginning to publish their production reports and all those kind of stuff online. Their major aim is not necessarily to brag, but is to catch the attention of the right people. I know a lot of farms that when they're organizing some events at the national or the subnational or state levels, because of the fact that they put a lot online, somebody in the organizing team notices them and says, please, we're organizing ABCD. You look like somebody we need to have in that room. This is an invitation letter, come and attend. And that gives an opportunity to get access to some of this stuff. Most of these trainings, most of these webinars and events, policies are being discussed. Changes in policies are being discussed. And on the final note, for those of us in Nigeria especially, just like saying if you're a US person, one of the fastest ways to get access to key information and policies is if you're following Donald Trump on Truth Social, and then it gets to be carried everywhere. So before ever that even gets to the whole space, he's saying what he has in his mind and what might be done, and it's going to affect a lot of things. So people prefer to go to his social media page to get access to information quickly. For those of us in Nigeria, for example, in the agricultural sector, the National Executive Council sits usually, whenever they get to sit, at the end of each sitting, they get to put out some of the deliberations or some of the discussions they've had. When the African Union people get to meet, when the different organizations get to meet, they put out some of their deliberations in bullet points on their social media pages. If you have access to the social media pages, it gives you the access to the information to tell you where your country or your region or your top sector is looking at. For example, if you're in the cocoa space, you're pulling up some of the media spaces online, then this EU regulation I told you about is not going to be any big news. So please, for us as young agripreneurs, access to information is very, very important. You might not do much as you can in your level to affect some of the policies, but it's going to be important as well that you know whatever policy changes are coming up and see how you can benefit or position yourself well, and then work hard towards putting yourself in those rooms that those policies are going to be discussed, so that at least that way you have a voice to make an influence. I think I'll stop here at this point. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you so much, Charles. It was so difficult to even stop you midway because I know that a lot of people were just taking notes. Thank you so much. But for everybody on the call, don't be worried. We will share this slide with everybody that has attended today's session. And you can always use it as a point of reference for your businesses. So thank you so much, Charles. Let us have questions. Do we have questions? We're not going to take a lot of questions because time has really gone. But if you have any question and you want Dr. Charles to handle those questions, please put your hand up. Let me call you to unmute and ask your question. We're just going to take only two questions, please. And when you ask your questions, make your questions very concise, please. Straight to the point. Do we have any question? Oh, everybody, they're still saying thank you in the chat box. Charles, see how you've really impacted on a lot of people here. Does anybody have question? Fatu, do you have a question? Okay, I can see Hamzat's hand. Okay, so we'll take Hamzat and Raphael. So Hamzat, please unmute and ask your question. Hamzat, unmute and ask your question, please. Team members, please unmute Hamzat. Okay, if Hamzat is not ready, Raphael, please unmute and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay, Hamzat. Okay.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks. I want to thank the organizer of this webinar, as well as the presenter for a job well done. My question is that with what he said toward the end of the presentation is where to access information, because information is key to anything you want to do. You can just give us some way by which we can access all this information he talks about. So this is that's my question. So will you give us a link or a kind of to access all this information?
Okay, Hamzat, the slides have a lot of information. So what will happen is, after today's session, maybe tomorrow, you will see in your email these slides. Okay? This slide has all the organizations you need to remain connected with. Do you understand?
Okay,
so you can always make reference to that. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Raphael, let us hear you. Unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Good evening, our lecturer, our teacher. Good evening. So I wanted to confirm, how can we preserve our local seed? Because there was a time, I don't want to mention them, a representative from the House of Rep came to share some seed that I need to take to the University of Benin to go and confirm where this seed is coming from. Before we later understand that seed cannot be regenerated, that if you plant it now, you can't replant it again, it will just die off. So we decided to do away with that seed and plant our local seed. But as it stands now, with the rumor going around Africa, it's like our seed is in a danger. How can we preserve our local seed? That is the question. And number two, sir, I need your phone number because I'm into the cassava value chain. I do cassava a lot, and I still do some kind of export. Thank you.
Okay, Charles.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So for the phone number, I might not be able to give out my phone number, but I can give out my LinkedIn link, so you can send me a message on LinkedIn. I think it's easier that way. Then we can now move the conversation down. So for the seed, I think I would say I want to appreciate you for the smart thinking around that. So, a lot of times it's very, very important for farmers to question inputs, so to say. Like I said, access to information is power. So there are a lot of farmers that would have gotten access to some input and they will not have thought through what it did to go to either the local authorities or to go to maybe some of the authorities available to confirm, the variety, breed, and the likes of that. I'm not a seed expert, but I would say a lot of seeds, a lot of hybrids. It's like an ongoing program. It keeps going in and coming out and going in and coming out. So one of the best ways, for example, in the pharmaceutical space, they had a similar challenge, and they did a system whereby you want to buy some drugs, so you can just scratch it, check the what do you call it, the QR code, or so you have to dial a number, and they get to check whether it's actually confirmed or not. So let that anyone walk into wherever your farm is and say, okay, this is an improved one, or this is this and that. I think there are systems. So the same way you're able to reach out to the local authorities, or for example, I think people have access to farmer groups, farmer WhatsApp groups and the likes. It's very, very important for farmers to be vigilant. So if any new thing or any unusual thing is going on, rather than assume it's an isolated incident, either you want to bring up that kind of information to confirm whether other farmers in your locality or your region or even in other regions are going through something similar, and that we see that to now scale it upward. So it affects a lot of stuff, even in the various other sectors, it affects it. For example, if you're in Nigeria, I think one thing I usually guide most people, especially in the agricultural spaces, one thing I tell people is anything you want to search, I usually go to Facebook or I usually go to Nairaland. That way you can even see conversations around that particular project or that particular product or whatever. If a farmer in Cross River State posted something online about this is what he observed, another farmer in Bayelsa State, another farmer in Kano State, another farmer maybe in Ghana, another farmer in another country, you have to sit and then one important thing to note whether whatever you're experiencing is an isolated incident or not. With access to information, you can even go online to find out whether some groups or some agencies have come out to say that, okay, this is what this seed is, or this is what this product is, or this is what this input is. So access to input or access to improved varieties of whether it's going to be seeds or even farm inputs, farm equipment, farm machinery, and the like, something that is always going to be ongoing. It's not going to stop. It has been there, it's still going to be there. But it's very important for farmers to be vigilant. And that vigilance means reporting as early. For those of us in the livestock sector, we have what we call the early warning system, or another process whereby if you discover something unusual on your cattle or on your farm animals, either you want to escalate it to other farmers in your locality, other maybe poultry producers and the like, to say, this is what I'm experiencing. Are you seeing the same thing? And as I'm doing that, the other groups you can actually escalate it to that. We now get to maybe the veterinary officers or some of the animal health workers or some of the animal health officers that you can now escalate to say, okay, wow, there's a disease outbreak here, or there's some unusual varieties, or there is this and that. So escalating any unusual or any suspicious product or activity or whatever is actually very, very important for farmers, and I think it's something to be encouraged as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. Please drop your LinkedIn. I'm so sorry we cannot take more questions. I'm so sorry. Time is fast spent. So connect with Charles on LinkedIn and ask him, bombard him with questions. He would answer you. Please, he's going to drop his LinkedIn profile now on the chat box. Just take a look at it and immediately copy it or click on the link so that you can connect with him after now and ask him all the questions you have. I'm so sorry we can't take more questions. We have to hurry up and close this session. So what we need to do now is to turn on our camera. I'll stop sharing my screen like we used to do. Everybody should turn on their camera so that we can take a group picture. Quickly, let us take a picture. Team members on the call, please take a picture. Elizabeth is smiling already. Francis is smiling. Charles, you will show us your face. So
okay, let me do that.
We need evidence that you were with us here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So Charles has dropped his LinkedIn link on the chat box. Make sure you connect with him and ask all the questions you have for him. Team members, can we take a picture quickly? Okay, I think we're good. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for paying attention. Usually we have quiz that we run, but because of time, we're going to skip it. We used to do something like this and give a gift to anybody that wins, but we're going to skip this because of time. So we'll just go straight to what we need to do as next steps, participants on this call. So we have these are announcements for us in the coming weeks. Next week we have the I think it's not next week, it's next 2 weeks, right? We have the Open Export Series. The Open Export Series is holding on the 21st of August 2025, in 2 weeks' time. So please don't miss it. 21st of August, you come and learn everything you need to know about exports. We'll have another expert like Charles to take us through the day's topic. We have the Agri-Funding Workshop series. This month's topic is focusing on crowdfunding, peer-to-peer funding for your business, grants opportunities out there. In fact, the facilitator would come with a list of grant opportunities that are out there, so you don't want to miss it. Make sure you put it on your dates, on your calendar. That's the last Thursday of August. The last Thursday of August. And then I had mentioned the BRAISE earlier on. Make sure you try as much as possible to apply for the BRAISE program. I have talked about the Know Your Members, and if you are a member of the AFC and your products are not on our marketplace, you are missing out. You are missing out. So log on to your dashboard and upload your product so that visitors on our website will see you and connect with you. Market access is one of the things that will provide for our members. Don't miss out on updates from AFC, opportunities, plans, initiatives, news. Subscribe to our newsletters. Follow us on all our social media handles. You heard what Charles has said. You need to be in the space at all times. You need to follow the right organizations at all times. So even though you are following these other content creators to make yourself happy, it's important that you follow organizations that will keep you up to date, will give you information, will let you know what is happening within the ecosystem. So follow African Food Chain Makers on all social media handles. We are on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, or the X, like you know. Once you search for us, African Food Chain Makers, on any of these platforms, you will find us. On this note, I want to, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you, Charles, for being with us from the beginning till the end, despite your tight schedule. We appreciate you. And thank you to everybody that participated in this session. We really appreciate you, and thank you for engaging your questions. Remember, Charles's LinkedIn is still on the chat box. Click on it so that you can connect with him on LinkedIn and ask him all the questions you have for him. Tell him you attended his webinar. He would remember you and give you that attention. On this note, I say thank you once again, and I wish everyone a beautiful evening. Cheers.